right, we're going to jump into our guest speaker for the day, our feature speaker. So Jeff Walker is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Launch. He teaches people how to launch online courses, products, services, and brands online. Jeff and I met about 5 years ago at the Genius Network, a mastermind group that we were both in. Jeff started his first online business in 1996, back before people even really knew what the internet was. He was already on an online business, and he pioneered the very idea of the online launch. His product launch formula transformed the online marketing world from the day it was released in 2005, and Jeff and the product launch formula have never slowed down. Now, more than 14 years later, the product launch formula brand is the gold standard in the online entrepreneurial training market. Jeff's students and clients have done over $1 billion in launches in hundreds of niches and markets, dozens of countries around the world. Jeff lives in Durango, Colorado, because he can live anywhere, and he loves to get outside for all kinds of adventures. He's been married to his wife, Mary, for decades. He's no longer quite as fast as his kids on skis or mountain bikes, but they still let him come along for the ride. So Jeff Walker, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for what you're about to share, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Cameron. Super appreciate it. So I just want to say I've got a soft spot for all the COOs here, because Cameron, you don't know this about me, but I actually went to school. When I went to school, to college, my degree was actually in operations management. So I can geek out with operations with the best of them, or not, actually not anymore, but I used to be able to. So it's great to be talking to you. I've asked my COO, Kristen Arnold. She's been with me for 11 years. She's been working through dozens of launches of mine. So there might be some nitty gritty tactical operational stuff that she can answer. So she's here as well. So like Cameron said, I started in the 90s. For about 8 years, I taught about the stock market. I've published and taught about the investing and trading in the stock market, got pretty good at marketing, and in 2005 started teaching people how to do these launches. So first of all, I can teach this. I'll do this in a 3-day seminar. So I'm going to try to do this here in 15 or 20 minutes for you, and then get to your questions. So it's going to be a little compressed. So the idea of a launch is if you think about the way Hollywood rolls out a movie, or Apple rolls out a new iPhone, or the gaming industry rolls out the latest game, they don't just drop it onto the market. They turn their marketing into an event. So this thing that I teach, which we call the product launch formula, you can figure that word product is in there, but it can also work for services just as well. And it's worked for online and offline. Most of my students have online digital businesses, and most of them have training businesses. So they're teaching people how to golf better, or scuba dive, or ski, or meditate, or have a better relationship, or build their business, or what. So most of them have online courses or membership sites, but it's been adapted offline. It's been adapted for all kinds of different things. And I think no matter what market you're in, there'll be pieces here that will work for you. So the whole idea is turn your marketing into an event. And there's 3 main tools I use for that. And they are stories, sequences, and triggers. And I'll walk through those for you. So like, how do you, if Apple or Hollywood, they release a trailer a year in advance, and then 6 months in advance, and then a month in advance, and then they send their actors out on all the talk shows, and all of a sudden everyone's talking about that movie before it came out. That's what we're taking, that power of the pre-launch, of the buzz campaign, and we're taking that power and we're bringing it into like our kinds of businesses. Most of the people I work with, they might be micro businesses, or they might have small teams. They might have 20 or 30 or 40 people on their teams, but generally it's taking that power that Apple and Hollywood has, and it's bringing it into our kinds of businesses. So there's a metaphor we use called the sideways sales letter. And in the sideways sales letter, we'll release pre-launch content. And typically there's 3 pieces of pre-launch content. And you'll release these in a sequence. This is the sequence. This is the first sequence that you'll use. You'll release these, and generally these days, they're done either as videos or as live streams. Now, I've been doing this so long that when I started out, the only real tool we had was email. So we just did this all via email. And then eventually we got the capability to use audio online, and we used audio online. Then we used blogs. Then we started to use really ugly video. Then we started to use fancier video, and then we started to do live streams. But these are 3 pieces of content that you'll typically release over a 7 to 10 day period. And they will tell the story of your upcoming offer. So this is the pre-launch sequence. And then this is what we call the open cart, OC for open cart. This is when you actually open up and you start taking orders. This is when you start selling your product. So this is the equivalent of Apple releasing all those rumors and inviting people to media events, or Hollywood releasing trailers. This is your equivalent in your business. So these 3 pieces of pre-launch content have very specific jobs to do. The first one is what we call opportunity. And no matter what you're selling the opportunity for someone's life to be better. You're either giving them pleasure or you're taking away pain. No matter what you're doing, whether you're selling private jets or pizzas, you're either giving more pleasure or taking away pain. So they have an opportunity for their life to change, even if it's in a small way. They have an opportunity for themselves to have a better life, to be able to step up onto that golf tee and hit their drive an extra 10 yards further than they have in the past, for them to be able to get their tennis serve in, for them to be able to have a great meditation practice, for them to be able to speak a foreign language. And this first piece of content, and I'm just going to assume we're doing video these days. It could be live video. It could be a live broadcast. Most people do video these days. And your first video is going to be about the opportunity. So let's see, I'll write that down, of how their life can change. You know, I'm teaching people how to launch a product or a service, but really I'm teaching them how to have an online business, or an online business that has grown quite a bit. So the opportunity is for them to have an online business, but really it's about them having the freedom that an online business gives them. It's them having the income, the lifestyle, the impact. And so really this first piece is all about showing what their life can become. The second piece is what we call the transformation. And in this piece, you're really showing what that transformation will look like in their life. This is often done with case studies or examples. Love to use case studies. So here it's like that conceptually their life could be better. They could have that great tennis swing. They could have that find their soulmate. They could have that incredible meditation practice. This is what their life will actually, this is where you show them how that how that transformation will actually show up in their life. This third one is ownership. And in ownership, it's like here it's conceptual, but here they actually start to take ownership of the change for themselves. So whenever you're selling something, especially high-end, most of the products my students are selling are higher end products. I sell $2,000 online training. I sell a $12,000 coaching program. I sell a $35,000 mastermind. So they're significant investments. And a lot of times people will look at that and say, that's really awesome that people can have that change in their lives. And oh, wow, I can see how their life truly would be transformed if I had an online business. But it's all conceptual. And this one is about having them actually take ownership for themselves. You know, it's one thing for people to say, yeah, someone else's life can be changed, or maybe my life can be changed, but for them to really embody it, to step into that idea of owning that change in themselves, that's a whole different thing. And then once you get to open cart, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth in a minute, but this is where It's all about truly enrolling them in that change. So this sequence that you take people, well, I've been teaching it for 15 years. It works. It's a very, very effective model. But what really makes it powerful is I mentioned sequences, stories, and triggers. These are the two primary sequences that you'll use. 7 to 10 days for the pre-launch. And then this is usually 4 to 7 days for the open cart where you're actually taking orders. So there's also these things we call the mental triggers. And mental triggers are these factors that impact how we make decisions. So I'm just going to go through 3 really important ones for you here. So for triggers, the first one is authority. When we perceive someone is in a position of authority, then we pay more attention to them. And when you're going through here and you're actually, this is all about building value. It's not just about showing the opportunity, transformation, ownership. You're actually teaching and giving real value throughout here. So if you're teaching, maybe you're teaching guitar, you could be teaching, you'll be doing real actual teaching throughout each one of these pieces and hopefully creating some real change in their lives even before you ask for the sale. And when you can do that, it establishes your authority. There's, I'll do this. I recently did this exact same sequence to sell my product launch formula, and I did it as 3 live broadcasts, each between 3 and 4 hours long. So I was given 9, 10, 12 hours of content here. I established enormous authority because I could just sit here and teach hour after hour without even asking for any money. That was massive, massive authority. Another trigger here is reciprocity. When you give something to someone, they feel like they want to give back to you. And by giving true value as you go through here, you're building up huge reciprocity. Another one is called social proof. And social proof is this idea, if we see a lot of other people doing something, then we'll do it as well, or we'll take that will create enormous influence for us. So for instance, Amazon reviews. You go to Amazon and there's 4,000, you're looking at one product and it's got like 12 reviews and another one's got 4,000 reviews. You're going to think there's something going on with the 4,000 reviews, and that's probably going to be the one you check out first. And the same thing works with social proof. Well, all the way through here, you're creating a little community, which by the way is another trigger. And you're asking people to comment, especially like a lot of times in the live streams, there could be a chat role. If it's just a video, down below each video, there'll be a section for comments. And in those comments and in the interaction, they can see that others are paying attention, and that creates social proof. Now, another really powerful trigger, closely related to social proof, is scarcity. And when there is a limited amount of something, we tend to want it more as humans. This goes back to the days when we were living in caves and there was like one thigh bone left. We made sure we got really interested in eating that one thigh bone before we had to go kill another mastodon. So scarcity comes into play here in the open cart. This whole pre-launch leads into mailing for open cart. You get into the open cart period and there's a whole sequence here as well. But as you get down to the end of the open cart, we're going to get really technical here. You have to make sure that there's a definitive end to your launch. By that, I mean they have to act by the end of the launch or some negative consequence takes place. And that's either bonuses go away. In other words, the offer changes, the offer is no longer quite as attractive, bonuses go away, or the price goes up, or the offer comes off the market. And when you do that, what happens typically, we'll go to green for sales. For your sales will typically, if this is a chart of your sales on day one will be pretty high because you'll get all the emotional people that are very excited about it. And then that will drop off midweek and then it'll spike through the roof on the last day. Often 50% of your sales come on the last day because of that scarcity trigger. But you absolutely have to have some negative consequence if people don't buy. Now, as you're going through here, you're going to be sending emails. I'm a big fan of email. This entire thing can be supported by social, but I love using email. So you're going to be emailing to each one of these pieces of content. You're also going to be mailing if it's a 10-day pre-launch. If you're mailing these every 3 days, you're also going to be mailing in between. And then once you get into open cart, you're going to be, let's just put some days in here. Let's make it a 5-day open cart. So we're going to go right there. So here's day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, 5. Hope that is clear. I should have left more room, but you're going to mail twice here. You're going to mail once here, twice here. And on the last day, you're going to mail 3 times. And you're going to be posting the social all the way through. And if you're using paid traffic, which works really, really well, both warm and cold paid traffic work really well, you're going to be hitting all these trigger points. What this allows you to do, we call this the sideways sales letter. It's like the idea of you take a long form sales letter, if you've seen one of those, and you turn it on its side. This gives you many opportunities to mail, many opportunities to touch your people. So, and it's not like the same old buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. It's more, you have real reasons to reach out. Hey, this is an amazing video. Oh, did you miss this such and such a thing in that video? Go check it out. Oh, here's another great video for you. It's the second in our series of 4 videos. Oh, did you see that really, really cool thing in that video too? Oh, I've got a great new video for you. And then here, hey, you know what? The 4th video is coming and I'm going to open up our program and you're going to be able to enroll. And then, hey, it's open. And oh boy, it's flying off the shelf. And oh, look at these case studies. And oh, frequently asked questions. And hey, it's going to close down tomorrow. You need to get it today. And oh, I added in a bonus live cast. And here it's closing tonight. And let me tell you a story about one of the people that has success with it. And then, hey, you've only got a few hours left. Now is the time to act. So that's super. Let me check the time. That is a super quick pass through the sideways sales letter. Cameron, I'm thinking maybe we should just check in right now. See, I better just check in, see how we're doing on time, and if you've got any questions.
Sure, we're good on time. You are crushing the content. It's amazing to me how well clearly you know it, but how well you're delivering the content on this. So yeah, you just clarified the one question I had, which is the sideways sales letter means the old long form sales letters that we're used to, and you're taking each of those components, the kind of opportunity, transformation, ownership, and enrollment, and you're moving it this way in terms of the sequences and how we roll it out, right?
Yes, totally. And you reminded me of something I forgot about. So like, exactly, that is exactly it. You had this long sales letter, which could have been 4 pages or 8 pages or 50 pages long. And those actually started way before the internet. You know, they were hard copy. People would send those hard copy out. And back then it cost money to add more pages. And then when that long form sales letter shifted to the internet, then all of a sudden it became 50 pages long because copywriters could just make them as long as they wanted. It didn't cost any extra money to make your sales letter 50 pages instead of 24 pages. So that worked initially in those late 90s, early 2000s, but they started to burn out. And that's when I came up with this concept of the sideways sales letter. And one of the big differences is that long form sales letter would have, what they did was they had, you know, this is the letter, and it'd have a headline up here, and then it'd have a subhead, and then it'd have a bunch of copy, and then maybe a subhead, a bunch of copy. And down here, it'd have the price. And they followed this formula called problem, agitate, solve. So you would define what the problem is. You know, yeah, you've been trying to fall asleep, but you don't know how, you know, you're not doing a good job falling asleep. Then you agitate it, you make them feel really bad. You know that when you don't get a good night's sleep, then you raise your risk of a heart attack, and you snap at your family, and you get less work done. You just really rub it and make them feel bad. And then you give them the solution. The solution is to buy your product. And that worked really, really well. But then when that went online, what people would do is this page would load and this much would load. And then they would grab that little scroll bar and then they would scroll down and see what the price was. And then they would decide if they wanted to buy from you. So it worked and it still works. And I still use them on occasion, but it didn't work as well as that sideways sales letter. And the other thing is markets became more savvy. They're so much more savvy than they were 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and certainly more than 40 years ago when this formula works so well. So now it's about really delivering instead of problem, agitate, solve. I have this thing I call the PS path, which is the problem solution path. So in this first video, you would define a problem. And you would not just define it, but you would actually give the solution, flat out give it. So in mine, and I'm just going to use mine because we're compressed on time and I'm more familiar with mine. But the first thing is you want an online business, you need to launch. So let me show you how to launch. And then I'll actually teach the sideways sales letter. And because I have more time in my live broadcast, I'll even go deeper than I'm going with you guys here. So I'll go full out deep and say, if you want to have an online business and all the freedom, the time, the money, the lifestyle, the impact that would give you, you need to launch. You can't just put out a product and hope it sells. You can't just put up a website and hope people find you. You need to launch. Let me show you how to launch. So I teach the sideways sales letter. Boom. And like I said, for 3 hours, I'll teach it. And I give that solution. But the thing is every solution has inherent in it the seeds of the next problem. So at the end of this video, I'll say, okay, so I told you need to launch. I just showed you the formula. This formula has been used to do $1 billion in launches. But the thing is, there's actually 3 types of launches. And in my next lesson, I'm going to actually show you the 3 primary types of launches. So what did I do? I just defined the next problem and left a little cliffhanger. So then we come back into here and I reiterate what that problem is. Okay, well, there's 3 types of launches and let me walk you through them. And then I actually teach all 3 launches. Again, at a 50,000 foot level, can't be super granular, but I teach the 3 types of launches that are most popular, and I let the viewer find which one works for them the best. Then, because every solution has the seeds of the next problem, I define what the next problem is. So it's like, okay, in the next one, I'm actually going to walk you through the nitty-gritty step by step. And so then what do? We come in here, I redefine that problem, and I solve it, and then I give the next problem, which is, okay, I've given this all to you, but if you're ready to be walked hand by hand through this, then you really need to check out my next training, because that's where I'm going to share with you how you can get coached all the way through this process. And that final solution is also where you make the sale. So instead of like the old style problem, agitate, solve, this is what we call the PS path, the problem solution path. And it's a way to give real value. Like every year I have people just go through my free pre-launch, my free, what I call my masterclass. Yeah. Don't pay me anything. And they still do great launches. So real value, but that PS path takes them right down the path to the sale.
So Jeff, a couple of questions. One was social media and our inboxes are inundated with formulaic pitches hitting all these triggers. I mean, you've clearly done such a huge job with your launches that we're getting marketed by launches all the time. How do we differentiate our product or our service in an era where everybody's getting used to this formula, or are they getting used to the formula at all?
Well, Cameron, when I released this in October of 2005, and I think it was by January or February, there was someone put out a white paper in the market that said, Jeff, thank you so much for teaching us how to launch, but we've all seen it now. Launches are dead. That was in 2006. And frankly, the numbers keep on getting better. In the market has gotten more competitive. You have to be more skilled and more artful in how you put together this messaging. You have to deliver real value. But just empirically, the biggest launches are bigger than they ever were. The beginner launches, I mean, we just had Amy Small teaches, she sells yarn, like fancy custom spun yarn. And she just had a launch that did $100,000 in an hour. And Dan, do you remember what that launch did in total? It was many hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, like probably somewhere in the $400,000 range selling yarn in a 4-day open cart. So I think, you know, you need to be better. I think you need to be more transparent. You know, in the old days, I wouldn't reveal that there was an offer until they got into this video. And it's like, oh, and by the way, here it is. And it was so, you're like this monster jumping out of the closet. Hey, give me money. Now, right at the very beginning, in the first 15 minutes, I'm like, I'm going to give you what I consider, what I think is the second best training on launching in the world. The best training is my paid stuff, and I'm going to offer that to you next week. But right now, let's just teach. And so I think you had to be more transparent, and you have to be more skilled in putting this, especially depending on how competitive your market is. I operate in the most competitive market there is in the world. And there's plenty of other ones that are competitive. If you're teaching guitar, it's less competitive. You know, if you're teaching ukulele, it's even less competitive, but it's somewhat market dependent, but it just keeps on working. It just keeps working. Because if you do it right, it's not like manipulation. Yes, you're building the triggers in there, but it's more they're built in as part of the process. And you're just really are delivering value. I'll beat the delivering value drum all day long.
That's great. It's so clear and apparent. Who has questions for Jeff on this? I just read out one of the questions from Gavin. Somebody just said, what happens after the open cart? How do you stay relevant? How do you get people to find you?
There are,
it's more like an evergreen style product, right? We're always
yeah. There are many ways to skin the cat. So you can take this thing and turn it all evergreen. So, you know, here, let's just say right here is your list building process, whatever that process is, whether it's running paid or organic, or joint ventures. But you can have it such that a new lead they opt in, and the day or two after they opt in, they go through this process, and it's automated. And obviously you can't do it if it's all live broadcasts, but you can do it with video, and you can actually just have the entire thing roll out for this individual prospect. Now, conversions, for some reason, like the universe knows that it's evergreen versus you know, in real time. So for some reason, the conversions are always a little bit lower in evergreen, but it can still be very effective. Or you can do, like a lot of times, a lot of our students they'll launch 3 or 4 times per year, but each time you're really launching to your new leads. Or there's like we did this, typically we'll do this once per year for with all our joint venture partners. So we have lots of partners that are mailing, and instead of just like one list, you know, list builder, we got all these partners here, and they're all mailing in. And we in the past, we've done our launch typically in September, and we'll do that one launch in September. Then we'll come back often a few months later. In fact, we've got one coming up next month in March. Yeah, we've got one coming up where we'll actually take the replays of this and do it again. And I'll be live. It'll be a live it's happening in real time, but I'll be like basically say, hey, I did this training last September. It's only been available for a total of 1 week in all, you know, ever, but I'm going to release it for a few more days and take people through another sequence. I'll do that next March. So there's many, those are just a couple of variations, but lots and lots of ways. Or you might alternate offers. You might have, like in January, we did something that looked different. It looked different from the outside world, but it still followed the formula for our coaching program. We opened up a $12,000, we have a $12,000 coaching program, and we opened that up in January for, you know, so we did that in January. In March, we're going to do PLF. And so, you can stack different offers like that, or you can do a pure evergreen, or you can do an episodic evergreen, which is like where you're doing it every few months. You're doing it many different ways.
Jeff, this has been amazing. I want to be cognizant of time, and I'll just say something really briefly. I think this was your third best thing you could have given us. The second best would be for everyone to read the product launch formula. The first would be to sign up for your course. But thank you very much for sharing with us today. I'm getting comments to me sent direct messaging, and even from some members that are actually deep in digital marketing that are already said bonus time, which means they've got enough value from just your presentation to pay for their entire year in the program. So that was pretty big stuff.
Cool.
Jeff Walker, thanks very much. Everybody wants to go off mute. Let's just give Jeff a big round
Thanks,
of
Jeff.
applause. Thank you for coming in. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Presentation.